Chapter 7. I don't know what page you have. Chapter 7. We will talk about stratification. Do you know who are these two guys? Do you know who are these two guys? Stranger. So do you think life has been fair to you so far? Young people, you are all young adults. Just tell me something. Before I tell you something about these two persons, do you think life has been fair to you so far?
No.
Okay, good answer. Any other answer? Why not? It's a good answer. Why no? So you don't believe in your American dream?
Not at the moment. I'm $20,000 in debt right now, and I don't know if that's ever going to get paid off.
Once you graduate, maybe you can pay it off if you have a job.
Yeah.
So who still believe in your American dream? It's not my dream, it's your dream. Who still believe in the American dream? Yes, no? Or you completely trash it right now? Or you believe to some extent, who knows? I'm not American. Partly. So do you think you can be anybody? You can do anything you want in this country? You can achieve anything you want in this country? Do you still buy that? You can achieve anything in America. You can be anyone you want in this country. So you still believe in the American dream. You work hard. You will succeed.
In a sense, yeah. It's just however much work that you put into this life is how much you're going to get out of it.
Okay. Joseph?
I agree with what he said, but I think the American culture is always, it's like a fixed culture society. It's for me, it's made for people who already have money to keep having money, and people who doesn't have money but have skills. But it's much more complicated because you would have to go against those people who already have money, who have all the facility to create more and compete against money. So if you don't have money, you cannot compete against money.
Yes. So Joseph, were you born in the US? Okay. So were you able to achieve your dreams here so far?
Well,
You are in the nursing program now.
well, I'm still studying, but it's still a question mark for me because there's a lot of people that's going to the nursing, and it's a big challenge. And I think the society also is not a fair society, and it's still a question mark. I cannot answer that.
And I don't know if I pronounce his name correctly. Forgive me. Is that Ahmad or Ahmed? How do I say your name? I'm sorry. Sorry?
Ahmed?
Ahmed. Okay. So you live in both countries before, right? At least two countries.
Yes, Sudan
And US. So, have you been able to achieve your dreams since you moved here?
I think so. Yeah.
You think so? It's a better opportunity here.
Yeah.
So, do you believe in the American dream?
For now, yeah.
For now, yeah. You are a political science major, right? So, do the names ring a bell? If not, you can consult Dr. Google. Some of you have your gadgets on. So, do you know anything about Robert Oppenheimer? Yeah, you're right to say that life isn't fair to most of us. So, do you know anything about Robert Oppenheimer? These are both brilliant guys, but their lives turned out vastly different. I think they almost have the same IQ, brilliant guys. One dropped out of college, Chris, due to factors beyond his control. The other one, I think, got a PhD, Robert, from Harvard and become part of the project for atomic bomb to counter Japanese expansion during the Pacific War. And when Robert was in graduate school, Robert was born in at least a middle-class family, according to Wikipedia, if I understood that correctly. So he went to Harvard for graduate school. Graduate school is stressful, even to these days. So maybe he was under stress, who knows? Maybe he had a mental health breakdown. He nearly killed one of his TAs or RAs, I don't remember, according to Dr. Google. And did he get kicked out of Harvard? He nearly killed somebody. Robert. Maybe he had a mental health breakdown. Too stressful, who knows? Getting a PhD at Harvard. The administrators concluded that no, maybe he was too stressed out. That's why he did that. It was unintentional. Because of that, he was able to graduate and be involved in that atomic bomb project. If not, wow, most of the Asia Pacific is still or are still occupied by Japan. So as you can see, his outcome is somewhat different from Chris. I think Chris, according to Dr. Google, he came from a working class family. If you consult Dr. Bing or Dr. Safari, that's what we found. And he has very high IQ. He's still alive now. Smarter than most of his teachers and professors in school and college. But because when he was in school, college, I don't know what college he went to. I don't remember. Dr. Google will tell you. He had to work to put himself through school. How many of you put yourself through school? It's a very proud thing. Show your hands. Yay. So, he went to tell his professor, can I take another session of the same course? I have to work during this time. I have a work schedule conflict. Can I reschedule my exams? I have to work. I'm putting myself through school. Do you think his professors understood his predicament at that time? Early 20th century? No. Correct. You were shaking your heads. Maybe at that time, college, who knows? In your country, in the West, in Europe, were mainly cater for middle class and upper, people from middle class or upper. So maybe professors did not understand his predicament. Professor said no to him. You cannot change to another session. His advisors, you do what I say. You have to be in this session. Oh, too bad. You cannot reschedule your exams. Professor did not understand him. Maybe professors thought from a middle class mindset. Professors, they might have assumed that all their students are from middle class, at least a middle class background. So because of that, Chris dropped out of college. But he was brilliant. So he continued to learn on his own, according to Dr. Google. Or according to a book called Outlier, they talked about these two men's biographies. He continued to learn about science, electronic, math, physics, and whatnot on his own. He got a lot of patents. He married a PhD. I think it's a PhD. Clinical psychologist or something. He married a very educated, intelligent woman. So as you can see, these two men, highly intelligent men, their lives turned out differently. So maybe you are right to say that society is not fair to everyone. So if you turn to page 191, what do you have? It gives you the definition of social stratification. And before we move on, I know I mentioned about the World War II, Pacific War, Japanese involvement, and that's not my intention to offend anybody in this class. I apologize if I offend anybody here. So what page do we have on the definition? Any volunteers? 195. So, as you can see, society is stratified in many ways. Stratification is a system that ranks and categorizes people based on different characteristics. People's income, people's assets, people's wealth, people's education, even people's race, people's gender, ascribed statuses, people's occupational prestige. Wow, people can be stratified in society in so many ways. And stratification is manifested in unequal distribution of wealth. This is on blackboard. It creates division in society. Stratification system creates division in society. Even hundreds of years ago, it creates division in society. So I think on page 195, it talks about slavery as an older forms of stratification system. And maybe page 196, it talks about the different reasons why slavery happened. People become slaves because of discrimination, their race, their income, their in debt, all kinds of reasons. On page 196, I think. Because of religion, because of crime, oh, they become free laborers, slaves. Because of ancestry, if you are born a slave during those days, you die a slave. Too bad. So as you can see, on page 196, stratification system, slavery, is an older form of stratification system. And as you can see from that page, people were slaves mainly due to their ascribed statuses. Statuses they have no control of. Achieved statuses is statuses we earn. We have more control. But slavery has more to do with ascribed statuses. And your book, I think 196, also talks about another form of slavery in between free people and slaves, the bonded servants, bonded laborers, indentured laborers. Is another classification, another rank in between free people and slaves. So these are older forms of stratification systems that existed hundreds of years ago. Do slavery still exist today? Think deep. Do slavery still exist today? Do people go to war today? Do war still happens today? So do slavery still happens today? Maybe. Prisoners of war, sometimes they work damn hard. Is a modern form of slavery. Or sometimes a change in political system, a coup or anything, an overthrow of government. It happens in Vietnam, China, maybe in Cuba, who knows. Maybe people from the old regime, they say they have a different ideology. The new regime government take them all into re-education camps. These re-education camps are essentially labor camps, besides brainwashing them with the new doctrines of the new political system. Sometimes they make these folks work hard too. So yes, slavery continues to exist today in a different form. And these are modern forms of slavery. It may be very different from what you saw here. So, are prisoners being treated well in America? You should know something about your country, Americans. are prisoners, are convicts being treated well in your prisons? Tell me something, Americans. Yes? No?
Well, they have free healthcare.
Free healthcare? Okay.
Other than that,
They're in resorts, they're tourists and drink.
They are in resorts?
Yes, because
Oh.
we pay for everything. People who pay taxes basically pay for everything for them. They
So-
don't pay tax, but they have to eat, they have right to health and everything.
Okay.
They don't pay tax.
They are. Were they forced to work? Okay.
I mean, especially in private business, they get less money. Like,
It's
they
like
can
forces
fund
it.
itself as well as getting tax income from people.
Okay.
Offering like, what,
Very
$2,
good.
$3 billion a year, something like that.
Very good, Colin. We are going into the right direction. So who benefit from the private prison systems? There are many private prisons now. Who benefit? The prisoners? Besides healthcare and resorts, who actually benefits from these private prison systems?
The-
Private,
I think
prisons.
rich people who commit some crime,
Yeah.
they get privileged to be sent to some specific prison because of their money or their relationship, like the politicians and other, like the films, the movie stars and stuff.
aside from the rich people who were caught and convicted, who else benefited from the private prison system? Who built those prisons?
Politicians,
Sorry?
the politicians.
Politicians? And are private prisons contracted to private entities? Who built them? Am I right? Tell me something about your country. I'm not born here.
Corporations.
So maybe those corporations who got contracts from the politicians and the politicians themselves, aside from the prisoners, they all benefited from this system. So, if you consult Dr. Google, I did not make it up. Those corporations who got the contracts, they benefited the most from this system. Do you know how much prisoners get paid to do their work? Sometimes prisoners have to work, like what Colin just told us. Do you know how much they pay prisoners to work? Take a wild guess. Shame on you, you don't know about your country. And we have to consult Dr. Google now. Oh, $4.73, what I saw. Not much. It's way below minimum wage in most states. Why? So, would we classify, it's up to your opinion. There's no right or wrong answer. Would we classify prisoners as slaves in any country? Yes, no? Tell me something. Would we classify prisoners as slaves? Why not? You are shaking your head.
They did it to themselves. It's their choices and their actions that put them in that position. So the only person that they have to blame is themselves.
Joseph?
Well, in some country, we might say yes, because if we go to it as human, right? Because once you commit a crime, you just lose your rights for any social activity. And if you're in prison, depending on the country, you are going to get a human treatment. But as it comes for civil rights and stuff, you lose them. Basically, you are not able to do much of things that free people have right to do, like the right for voting. You lose that because that as he said, you do it to yourself. Then shame on you.
But, yes, you want to say
I was
something?
just gonna comment on, I don't know, well, as I said before, the CCA, you know, they run the corporation, or the corrections corporation on that, and they spend $2 to $3 million around like 2003 or something like that, trying to lobby Congress to make stricter laws and harsher sentencing in order to profit off of the prisoner. But on top of that, you know, the laws are made out of nowhere to benefit someone. And somebody really like gets trapped up in it, is that their fault? I mean, like look at people in Colorado, you know, everybody's smoking weed up there, but now down here, you know, people still getting jail time just for that. It's all speculation now.
Because crime and deviance, we talked about that a few weeks ago, are socially constructed. Different people make the laws in different places. So, as we can see from this slide, hundreds of years ago, in many, many countries, people become slaves because they commit a crime too. So what's the difference between then and now? You say prisoners are not slaves. You will not consider prisoners slaves in today's society.
Because before, the society wasn't so human right oriented, like so advocate for human rights than it is today. Because now today, everybody is more focused on personal rights, and all those rights for today, society are not allowed to violate those law, those human rights laws. But before, it was much more a society was like law oriented. So it was like, oh, I have a right to do this. I know it was everything more strictly, everything by the law.
Okay.
Than it is today.
You have a point. So do you buy Joseph's point, folks? So, are you clear about slavery? Shall we move on? So the caste system, maybe 197, is another older form of stratification system, the caste system. You can read about the definition on your own. Turn to page 198. Here are the different castes in India. Do you have table 7.1 somewhere in your book? 197, table 7.1. Thanks, Bailey. So if you are born in that caste, you die in that caste. Too bad for you. So slavery and caste are the more rigid forms of stratification system. And then you have the estate system. What page do we have now? Volunteers? The estate system. It's like the feudalism. Estate stratification system. What page are we on right now? 200. So, estate stratification system is also pretty rigid, like caste and slavery. You have the three main categories. The nobility, you can read about what they do in those days. The clergy, or clergy, and commoners. And in those days, correct me if I'm wrong, it's hard to switch from clergy to nobility. Unless a war happens. You overthrow the old regime, it happens. In those days too. So as you can see, society or the system of stratification is socially constructed, am I right? The early European immigrants, when they landed on this soil, they instituted their modern forms of government and political system, economic system. They built a country. So many things are socially constructed. They built a reality here with their modern government and economic system, school systems. Your early European immigrants. And it's the same for Fidel Castro. When he overthrew the old regime, he constructed a new reality in Cuba. The same for Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh in China and Vietnam. And when they did that, they give a new definition to the system of stratification. They reconstruct the system of stratification. And I don't know enough of the Western or American history. I think in the Eastern history, ancient China, sometimes if the old emperor, ruling class, politicians, we call them, if they are so corrupt, sometimes the civilians or the commoners will overthrow the old regime. It happens in an ancient China. Maybe it happens in Europe as well, I don't know. Yes? No? Who is a history major here? Teach me something. Yeah. Industrial Revolution. It overthrew the feudal system. It reduce the influence of nobility in Europe. Yeah, that's right. And after Industrial Revolution, most European countries from a feudal system, they gradually switched to a class system. I have page 197. I don't know what page you have about class system. 201. So a class system is more flexible than the feudal system, the estate classification system, the slavery system, the indentured servant system. America and many democracy or capitalist country, they have a class system. You can move in and out of different social classes based on your personalities, your effort, your hard work, your motivation. All kinds of traits can affect whether you are going to move up or move down within different social classes in a country. So, this is the difference between a caste system and a class system. A person's social positions in a caste system is determined entirely by birth. You cannot change. It's hard to change. Even though there are instances in history, maybe in Europe and in the East, where people overthrew corrupt governments. But a class system is a lot more flexible, a lot less rigid than the caste system. A person's positions or a person's social class in a society is determined by birth and achievement. So you're right to say that your life is not fair. I buy that. The Rockefellers, do you know who they are? The Rothschilds, the Morgans. Are you connected to any of them? Anybody connected to Rockefellers? Can you raise your hand? I want to see. To Rothschilds, to Morgans, the big guns. Okay, good. I am going to say something bad about them. So, those are the elites. And maybe their descendants, their children, they started off on a different basis than us. And maybe they have to put in different amounts of effort and hard work or motivation when they apply to college or they apply to other things in society, who knows. And maybe it's true for Mark's daughters. I think he has 2 girls, if I remember correctly. He has 2 kids, Mark, the Facebook guy. All Bill Gates' descendants. We did not start off from equal basis. So I understand why you don't completely believe in your American dream. And in some countries, stratification can also happen by gender. Females are in a subordinate position in some very patriarchal societies. And sometimes in some matriarchal societies, males are in subordinate positions. So stratification can happen through our ascribed and achieved statuses. So let's talk about the global superclass. What page do we have? The global superclass. These are the minorities that dominate the majority, the high percentage of the wealth in the entire world. Some people may say Illuminati, who knows? Or those world organizations, UN, World Bank. The high-ranking officials in UN, World Bank, WHO, who knows? They may have close affiliations with maybe high corporate executive governments. What page do we have? The global superclass, or it's not in your edition, so we don't have to talk about it.
It's on page
201. So Do you know anything about the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers? Would you consider them the global superclass, or they are only influential in the US? Would you consider the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the global superclass, including Bill Gates or Mark?
Yes.
Why? Tell me something. It's common sense. You don't have to read before class to tell me that. Why? We would consider Mark or Bill Gates, or the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the global superclass.
Because their wealth still affected the rest of the world.
Yeah. Their influence extends beyond the US. Their products, their political power, all kinds of advantages they have extends beyond the US. So yes. And go to the page that says Karl Marx, 202. So Karl Marx views stratification system in a different way. Karl Marx has a very oversimplified way of viewing stratification. He says society are stratified by the means of production. There are only two classes of people, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, the capitalist and the working class. It's oversimplified, we all know that. In your US society, in any societies, there are more than two classes of people, right? Middle class, lower middle, upper middle, working class, lower class. The elite. And turn to the page 203, am I right? That says Max Weber. So, Max Weber has a more holistic notion of stratification when he attempted to understand society, different social positions people have in society. He says people are stratified by their property, the amount of wealth or property they have. That's one aspect. And people in a given society are also stratified by the amount of power they have. Senators, congressmen, high-ranking government officials. They may not be filthy rich like Bill Gates, but they have a ton of power, more power than the rich people in some societies. And sometimes these three aspects may not overlap with one another. Sometimes they may overlap, but not entirely. And people can also be stratified by their prestige in society. So prestige are the occupations or the role a person plays in society. Your textbooks give example like Olympic medalists. They make a lot of contribution. They won medals for their country. Or maybe, who knows, social workers. They don't get paid a whole lot, but they do a lot for a given society. Or ministers, religious leaders. In some countries, they have a very high position, Buddhist monks, in society, depending on their cultural traditions and belief systems or value systems. So Weber provided a more holistic picture of stratification. Let me stop here now. Has everybody signed in? I don't want to lose the sign-in sheets now. Has everybody signed in? If not, you are not going to get credit again. No, you are not free to go yet. 10 more minutes. And I need the sign-in sheets at the end of the class right here. So one last thing I'm going to mention, I'll let you go. Page 204. So this is how the functionalist perspective they view stratification. Functionalist theories, it comes from the word function. They think that stratification plays a function in society. Inequality plays a function in society. When people are put into their different places in society, they play different roles in those places. And according to the Davis and Moore explanation, if you go to page 204, point number 4, the more important a person's position in society, the more rewards a person is going to get in that society. Do you buy that? Maybe to some extent, stratification plays a function in society. In a class system, if we are in a lower class, it may push us, it may motivate us to move to a middle class or upper class. We may work harder. So that's how stratification plays a role, motivating people in society. I buy that. But what about the last point? So are comedians the most important people in society? Are athletes the most important people in society? Some athletes, some comedians, they are very high paid. We all know that. So are these folks the most important people in society? According to the Davis-Moore explanation. Are athletes, comedians the most important people in society? So, is the Davis and Moore explanation entirely right? Is the one last question, and I need the sign-in sheets. Is the Davis and Moore explanation entirely right? Are comedians, athletes more important than social workers, ministers, law enforcement officers, military personnel? So is that theory entirely right? Okay, I'll see you on Wednesday. Have a good fall break. And I need the 2 sign-in sheets.
You better turn those freaking sign-in sheets